Hey y'all, Will here. I wanted to do a video about something I wrestle with on a fairly common basis, and just the Bible itself. We look back through history, and it's only been in fairly recent years that um, there's been a majority availability of accurate Bible texts and translations. And this goes back to not just translations, but also what the words mean. And again, my last video about um, translation is not the essence of understanding. And 50 years ago, without being fairly highly educated and being close to where the source of this education was, I wouldn't have been able to be doing videos like this, right? And for me, I struggle with that because I look at the course of Christianity, and I think I've mentioned this before. I don't like calling myself a Christian. I prefer a believer or a follower of the way, just like the first century Christians, because it wasn't that was a term coined by basically opposers of Christianity, in my understanding. And I struggle with the implications of that knowledge being hidden or lost to most of Christianity, air quotes, right? Not a bunny hop in air quotes. I don't even like air quotes, but I do them too often. I should probably rethink that. Apparently, I like them because I use them. Really deep thoughts, right? But I struggle with the implications of accurate Bible knowledge or accurate understanding of what was said in the first few centuries of Christianity versus throughout most of time since the first century what was available to most of the world. Like, I struggle with thinking that we even need the Bible. Yeah, I think it's a great tool. It's also a tool that can be used for great harm or great good. And there's a good case to be made for the amount of harm that the Bible has been used to commit. But then again, you also can't judge a group of people, a religion, on the abuses or the false abuses of that religion, because Christianity at its core, biblical Christianity at its core, does not line up with stuff like the Crusades and feudal Europe and the Roman Empire. Like there are obvious abuses and 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 mutations and of what Christianity actually is versus people trying to form it into a way of attaining power, right? So then, fast forward to today, and yeah, in our day and time, man, knowledge is available unlike it has been probably ever in recorded human history, at least. And we look at Christianity, we look at what that is, what it means to be a follower of the way. What is the way? I am the way, the truth, and the life, right? So that'd be, yes, a follower of the way that Jesus showed us. But then look at how much has been done using the Lord's name in vain, which would be the definition of a lot of historical Christianity, and particularly the Dark Ages, Middle Ages, even not even that, go back to Rome before the Dark Ages, right? And, you know, using the Lord's name in vain doesn't mean saying God damn. It's talking about using the Lord's name for committing an act, basically of evil, like something like the crusade. You're saying, oh, see, God told me to do this, so therefore it's good, and I can go kill a bunch of folks, or I can go perpetrate all these evils, right? That's the definition of using the Lord's name in vain. Because when we actually understand, thanks to current knowledge, thanks to the availability of knowledge we have now, when you understand what it means to use the Lord's name in vain, you look at the God of the Bible versus how the God of the Bible has been perverted for century upon century. And it doesn't line up. And that's, again, the definition of using the Lord's name in vain. Look it up in Hebrew. Like, this isn't new information. I'm not the first one to think of this, right? Carry the Lord of the name in front of you for something that isn't sanctioned by God. I'm doing this in God's name. Like a jihad for Islam, right? Like, you can translate that over to a lot of Christianity pretty easily. But that doesn't actually follow the way. That doesn't actually follow a believer of the first century. So I struggle with this big gap in knowledge, this big gap in time of a lack of understanding. But it also comes into a gnosko, right? In the Greek, the intimate, this means everlasting life, and you're coming to know, to have a gnosko, to have an intimate relationship. And then I go back and I look at agrarian societies versus modern in our time. And for a few hundred years, I would say, in this country, in the US. And this is where I struggle with finding some truth in a lot of religion. And I don't believe you can find all truth in all religion, right? Again, I don't even like the word religion. I think it's a bunch of BS. It's just means of control. You can use the Bible for great good or great evil. It all depends how you use it and how you manipulate it, right? But I do struggle with the implications of the majority of society, like immense majority of the society for most of our history for the last 2,000 years, not actually having access to accurate biblical writings. But then so that being said, do you need the biblical writings? Yeah, they can be helpful. Like I said, they can be a tool. But I struggle with this on a fairly regular basis because, and then you go back to, the laws were written on your heart. I understand that to mean your conscience. And also, I would understand my way of looking at things means that I realize now that, and for quite a while, that just doing things in my own way under my own power doesn't work. I'm always going to fail. Physically, my body, I'm only 41, but I've been beat up pretty good in my life. Been sewn back together more than once. And I don't have a 20-year-old body anymore that can just recover like it could before. And because I have an alarm set in my phone. I guess I look at all this stuff and it just, it makes me question everything and look for where the truth is and how I feel the great majority have been corrupted by religions, and people have been corrupted by lies sold by religious leaders worldwide. But there's also something to be said for following your conscience, and there's also something to be said for religions. You gotta I heard Melissa Doherty, I think was her name, make a video about this recently, like in the last day or two. And, she breaks up religions, and it's a quote she heard from someone else, that there's religions of do or done. And you look at Christianity, and the salvation is done. True Christianity, I will say that, right? Not using the Lord's name in vain. True Christianity versus false Christianity, because there's both. And then outside of Christianity and religion, it's always do. You look at Jehovah's Witnesses, you got to do this, you got to do that. You look at other religions, it's all do, right? Yet you look at actual, accurate biblical Christianity, and it's done. The works are to believe. Yet that's been hidden from most. It also makes me think of, like the way is narrow, right? But it also, I struggle with that, because what are the implications of that for all this time that people that didn't have this availability of it? So is it you violate your conscience too many times, and somehow that doesn't work? But what if you don't know Jesus, the name of Jesus? But what did a name mean in Hebrew and in the culture at the time? It meant the essence of someone, who they were. So can someone know Jesus without knowing the name Jesus? I think so. But that also flies in the face of 2,000, not 2,000 years, but let's say 1,800 years of, air quotes, Christianity. But also realizing that you can't do it in your own power. I think if most people are honest, I think they'll realize that we can't do it all ourselves. Hence religion, hence belief in a higher power. It's hardwired into our DNA. It doesn't take much to look at that throughout history and see that as a thing. Anyway, just want to express that. Anyone that watches this, I know not too many people will, but if you have any thoughts for me, I would really appreciate them. Different views, different outlooks. It helps me quite a bit to mull things over, right? And yeah, that's about it. Y'all have a good one.